Okay, so before we go into the solution, I would like to explain to you what the concept is of Platform Manager so that you understand what you will see during the demo. So what we say in general is that Platform Manager is a layer on top of your BI solutions. So instead of going directly into your whatever BI solution you have, in this case in BusinessObjects, to start changing an existing universal document, or if you want to publish a new universal document or a changed version, you go into Platform Manager because Platform Manager is a single point of truth. As a start, when you install Platform Manager, the first thing you'll do is you'll get all of your apps, all of your universal documents, all of the files into Platform Manager. We have a separate function for that, which is called import functions and files, which is outside of the scope of this session, but that helps you to get started very quickly. And once all of these files are stored in Platform Manager, that is your single point of truth. And then you can initiate everything that you want to do with BusinessObjects through Platform Manager. So first of all, for instance, you're a developer, you want to change an existing universe. What you'll do is you locate the universe in the folder structure that you have, which is familiar to you because you have the same structure on your BusinessObjects server. You check out the file to the location where you want to change it, and then BusinessObjects is opened automatically. So you can implement the change, and when you're done with that, you can perform a check-in, and that puts the version back into Platform Manager in the version control solution. It also extracts the metadata, and it also, of course, synchronizes this new version to your SAP BusinessObjects repository. Now, when this development has finished, so it's ready to move into the next phase, also you do that through Platform Manager. So as a administrator, for instance, you pick up a file from development and you publish it to the next environment in line. That can be immediately to production. We don't advise that. We advise always to have a test or acceptance test in a version environment in between. So what you then do is you publish this new version to, in this case, acceptance. And in acceptance, your QA people and testers are available to start testing the application. And of course, it's also synchronized to your SAP BusinessObjects repository that is associated with acceptance. Now, what we have in acceptance is an interesting feature. We have a workflow or a checklist, if you like, that contains several tasks that you want to be checked before you move anything to production. So these tasks are basically enforced by the solution. If they're not approved, you cannot move the universal document to production. So when all of that has been done, and these tasks can be like, for instance, did you test the application? Did you check the database connections? Did you inform the business users? Is the documentation available? And so on and so forth. When all of these tasks have been approved, then you can do the final step, which is publishing it to production. And that means that from that moment on, your business users will be able to access the universal documents because, again, it's synchronized to your production SAP environment. Now, using this mechanism, you're sure that only approved apps will end up in your production environment. And also your developers and administrators don't need access themselves to production because it's done with a user that is embedded into Platform Manager. So it makes it very easy for you to isolate your production server. Now we have separated these various functionalities in different modules, development, promotion, and analysis, so that you can also implement segregation of duties. If you want developers only to be able to access development, that's easy to do. And you can also make it easy to have promotion users only being responsible for publishing apps, publishing universes, publishing documents, but not being able to develop anything. So I hope this is clear to you. Let's now dive into the solution. So I'm going to sign in with my own user. And as you can see, this user provides access to development, promotion, and analysis, but not to configuration, administration, and dashboard. So this is already an example of segregation of duties. I cannot access these modules, but I can access the one below here. So I'm going to open up development, and this is a structure that we have for demos, but in your situation, this will be similar to what you have on your BusinessObjects server. So for now, let me just go to one of these universes, eFashion. Probably you're familiar with that. And what we can see already from this overview, of course, I've loaded all of the files in, and I've also made some changes already and published them to acceptance and production. And what we can see here is that we have the same version in acceptance as we have in development, and there's an older version in production. And we can also see the individual states here, which can be in progress, approved, or rejected, for instance. Now, another thing that we can see here is which documents are basically using this universe. And that's, of course, interesting because if you are changing a universe, that could affect all of the apps, all of the documents that are using that specific universe. So it's important to know, do I have 5 documents that are using this universe or maybe 200? And in the last case, you probably need some more time to do testing as well. And then, of course, we have the different versions here. So in case you would want to restore to a previous version, that's quite simple. You can just select the version that you want to revert to and then use the restore function, which then enables you to specify some comments and press the restore button. I will not do that right now. But that will basically restore that specific version, which means that it's restored in PlatformManager. So that means that version 4 will become green and italic. So that because that is the current version, that will also be the version that will be checked out if a developer wants to change that universe. And also it's synchronized, of course, to the development BusinessObjects server that is associated with this environment. So that is interesting, I think. What I'd like to do now is I would like to change this universe and show you how that works. So as a start, I'm a developer right now. I'm going to perform an edit on this universe. And that means that it will allow me to change this universe in a location that I would like to work in. That can be a shared workspace. That can be an environment that you define on a server where you want all developers to work collaboratively. But in this case, I prefer the custom location, which is my client file system. And I'll be checking out to that environment right now. So I can select a different folder if I want to do that. I could say, okay, I want to do this in my development Europe environment. I can select files as well, and then I'll press continue. I could also have specified some comments, by the way, like the change request number or a link to a change request in a other solution, for instance, Jira or another change management solution. So the file is checked out now, and I need to sign into BusinessObjects, which I want to do with my own user ID, of course. And this will open up the universe that we've just checked out. So what I could do, for instance, now is I could go through the objects. I'm just going to do this for the sake of the demo. So I'm going to remove this to name of the manager. Maybe I want to create an additional alias, like additional shop facts. I could also create a class, complete class out of that. Maybe I also want to change a join, just for the sake of the demo again. It doesn't make sense, but and let's also change some of the universe parameters. For instance, the way the SQL is generated, I want to allow selection of multiple contacts and the join strategy. Let's leave that as is. So, okay, that's fine with me. Going to save this, exit Universe Designer, go back to PlatformManager and perform a check-in. Don't have to specify the location. Some comments, that's useful. And the final step is specific for BusinessObjects, where I can change the connection. Now, there's no need to do that now because this is the right connection that I want to use. But if you want to change it, you can just set this to false, and then you can select a different connection if you like. And those connections come directly from the BusinessObjects repository that is associated with the development environment. So the file is checked in, so I can see that there's a new version now. The version has been created today, and what I can do very easily is now look at the differences. So that means that I'll be able to show you every change that we've made. So the change in the universe, different universe properties, of course, the fact that we've changed these settings for multiple SQL statements for a measure and multiple context. And that's important because that really changes the way that your SQL is generated inside your documents. We can see changes in classes. Well, I've removed the name of the manager in this class, as you can see, and I created an additional class called additional shop facts based on the table alias, which is of course also visible here. The table alias additional shop facts. And of course you can see the object changes. So again, removing the name of the manager and introducing some additional fields that come from this new table that I've created, the alias. So basically this provides you all of the changes, and that's interesting because this is something you would definitely need if you want to test the universe. Now what's even more interesting is if you could find out which documents are affected by this. And we can do that in a way. So how does that work? So when I go back to Platform Manager, I could select a function here that is called Object Impact. And what this does, it shows you all the classes and objects from a universe, the universe that you've selected, and it enables you to select the objects that you intend to change. So if you have a change request, or if you think as a developer you are changing like 10 different objects in your universe, you could select all of them. I can even select an entire class if you like. So that selects all of the objects which are part of that class. So in this case, I could select, for instance, margin and discount. I've selected the store class, and I'm going to select the category, SKU number, and label, and solve that. So let's assume that I intend to change these objects, and I'd like to know which documents are affected by that change. Well, that's really going to affect these documents, these three different documents. So store sales, charting samples, and shop details. And I can also see where it's going to be affecting this document. So this is about category margin, state margin, state, city, and store name. So this is a very useful feature because this enables you to identify the scope of your test project based on the changes that you're going to make to the universe. And I'm talking about changes that will affect the documents. So again, if you have 200 documents, but you know that only 3 of them are affected by the change, you have a very small test project. If you know that 100 documents are going to be affected, it'll take you a lot more time to test if the change was implemented correctly. So now that we've changed the universe and we've identified the changes in the difference analysis, I'm satisfied with what we've seen. So I'm ready to move this into the next environment. And if you can still get the picture back where we started with, the next environment is acceptance. So I'm going to put this universe in our acceptance environment. And it's quite simple. We can use the promote function for that. But as you can see, it's grayed out because we are forced to create a version number first, because that helps you to identify all the different versions in the different servers that you may have. You can decide what the version number should be by using these buttons. That's to prevent you from creating an older version number for a newer version and so on and so forth. So we do that for you. Just select the type of change, in this case a minor change, demo webinar, as comments, and I'll assign the version number. And now I can basically publish this universe to the next environment. Now publishing, even if it's to a different BusinessObjects server, is quite simple because we know exactly what we have done before and we can repeat that. If you want to keep the same settings, you just can use the auto promote function. You can see where PlatformManager is going to be publishing this universe to, and if that's okay with you, just fill in the comments again. And then you, of course, you can also schedule this. So if you don't want to run it immediately, you can schedule this for a later time today or next week or whenever you want to publish this. And pressing next is all that it takes. So you don't need to download anything, move it to another environment, or use LCM to publish the universe. You can do it straight through Platform Manager. And that's very easy, very nice to do. And let me just show you the various options that we offer during the promotion. So let me just do this now manually. You could select multiple locations. So if you would like to publish to multiple files, multiple folders, multiple servers, that is possible as well. The next screen allows you to define a comment here, and you can also pick a checklist. And this checklist is what we talked about before, is going to be enforced in your acceptance environment, and all of the tasks in the checklist need to be checked before you can move the universe to production. So in this case, when you hover over, you can see the individual tasks. So this has a database update check, a dependency check, and a final approval by the business users. And since this is a finance application, let's just select that one. And the next step is basically specific to business objects. So in this case, we will have the ability to change again the connection. So we're moving to a different server, and we might want to use a different connection that is pointing to production data, for instance. So in this case, that's not the case, but again, we can set this to false and then select the connection that we want to use and then continue with that. So these are the specific settings for business objects, and let's just check if the promote went through successful. We can already see that over here, because now the new version that was created by ourselves in development is now also available in acceptance, and it has a state in progress. So the next thing in the workflow will be that we go to the acceptance environment, and of course I have all the rights now to do that. But you can also have a different user being able to do that. We already have selected the universe, and we can now work our way through this menu. You see that there are a lot less options because we don't have the option to change the universe in promotion, of course. You can only do that in development. So that is restricted, and I think that's a good thing. What you can also do is you can form a get or a view. You can also do that with older versions. So if you want to see what the previous version looked like, you can simply perform a view, and then you can see that it's copied to a temporary location, and you can just investigate what that version looked like. But the normal process now is to work your way through the checklist. In this case, this was the default checklist, so not the one we selected when we manually went through the options in the promote wizard. And the only thing I need to do is test the item against production data. And I could say, okay, test was okay. Of course, I need to test first. And then we can say, okay, the test was successful. So I'm going to press succeeded. And what you see immediately is that the state of the item changes to approved. That means that all of the tasks in the checklist, just one in this case, have been approved. So I can now move the app to production. In case it was not okay, you can simply reject this, and that means that the state of the item will become rejected, and you will never be able to publish a rejected file to production. So this is going to prevent you from having issues in your production environment. But of course, well, prevent you in a way, because if you don't test thoroughly and you overlook some of the issues that are inside the universe, you can still have issues in your production environment. But the good thing is, if you have an issue in your production environment or in acceptance, like in this case, you can very simply move back to the previous version. Now, the acceptance and production environment don't need to have all the versions that you have in development, right? In development, we have version 1 to 6, and here you don't have version 1, you don't have version 4, because they never made it to acceptance, because they were changed before they were actually published. So now if I want to restore to the previous version, I can simply do a restore here as well. And we can do that, of course, also in production. Okay, some other things that I would like to show you. For instance, what is very nice now, we've changed the universe, we've published that to acceptance, and we've worked our way through the checklist. What's also interesting is that instead of moving individual files over, you could also say, okay, instead of doing that, I would like to build a release. We have a release every month. And I'd like to put all of the changes in that release and publish that as a container object, so that we don't have to do that all individually. Also, if you change a universe, you create some new classes, some new objects. You also have a document that uses those new objects and classes. You want to stick them together. You want to have them as a single unit of work, because in case you restore the universe to a previous version, your document will not be working anymore. So you want to have them to stick together. And then if you put in the release, you can restore the entire release to a previous version. Now, building a release is quite simple. You just select the documents that you want to publish. For instance, let me just select one of these, a few of these. And if I'm building a release, you can do that two ways. You can do it from scratch, or you can say, okay, to PlatformManager, I want you to create a release out of these apps, out of these documents, and also use the relations that we have. So in this case, it's going to put the universes that are being used by these documents in the same release. And then you have a bunch of files that need to be published together. So that's a very neat way of working with PlatformManager. There's a lot more about releases that we can say. For instance, if I go to the release view, you can say that there is an option here that flags the release, that so that if there are older versions in your release and there are already newer versions created, then you have the choice of having those new versions in your release. You can see that eFashion still has version 2.0.2. Now we just updated that to a newer version, so you can simply update your release, having all the latest versions in your release, and then you're good to go and to publish this to the next environment. So you can put multiple different file types in your release. That's also very nice, I think. And also, instead of just having the ability to manage your click and BusinessObjects files, you can of course also manage your Excel sheets, text files, documentation, SQL scripts, and you can include those in your releases as well, so that you have a complete package of everything that you need in your production environment. So there's one thing that I'd like to show you, and then we're done with this short summer session demo, and that's the ability to search across the metadata. This is very powerful because it enables you to look for whatever you like to search for. For instance, if I'm looking for a specific object, I know that it has something to do with revenue, but I'm not sure what the name is. So I can just simply type in revenue. And this searches through the entire metadata of, in this case, BusinessObjects. But you can also include click. If I would have had click in the same environment, in the same implementation, I could also include click in the same search. And what you can see is that we've had one IDT universe, two UDT universes, and two Webby documents that contain this revenue word. And if I'm looking for the details, we can see that it's used in an object name, and select statements in description, and so on and so forth. So this is for IDT. Then we have also results for UDT, and we have results for the Webby documents. So we can see which objects are basically used having that same name. So this is just an example. You can also look for all of your aggregate aware, because maybe you want to eliminate that because of performance reasons. So you can look for aggregate aware, you can look for specific table names, you can look for column names, and so on and so forth. So this is a very, it might look a little technical, it is technical, but it's a very powerful part of the PlatformManager solution. So that's it for me for today. Hope you enjoyed it, and hope to see you again soon. Bye bye.